If you stood in London in the spring of 1348, the first thing you'd notice wouldn't be danger, it would be how close everyone lived. From an upstairs window, you could stretch both arms out and almost touch the house across the street. The buildings leaned toward each other like they were tired. Laundry lines crossed overhead, and rainwater mixed with waste as it ran through the same narrow gutters between the stones. Nothing ever really dried. Boots stayed damp, straw stayed dark and soft underfoot, and the air always felt a little used. There wasn't space to avoid people. Every step meant brushing sleeves, bumping hips, sharing breath. If you stopped walking for even a second, someone behind you would run into your back. But no one thought about it. That was just what cities felt like. Crowded meant alive, and alive meant safe. Morning followed the same rhythm every day. Bread ovens lit before sunrise. Butchers dragged carcasses across wooden tables still slick from yesterday's work, and fishmongers dumped their barrels straight onto the street, rinsing everything with the same cloudy bucket of water. Dogs fought over scraps. Chickens picked at whatever was left. Nothing was separated. Food, animals, waste, it all mixed together. Grain sacks sat next to beds. Pigs wandered through doorways like they belonged there. Rats lived in the walls, under the floors, sometimes in the same rooms people slept in. If you dropped crumbs, they were gone before nightfall. And if you stayed quiet long enough, you could hear scratching behind the wood. But rats weren't alarming. They were normal. Every house had them. And after a while, you simply stopped noticing. London wasn't isolated either. That was its strength, and eventually, its problem. Ships arrived every week from across Europe, wool going out, goods coming in, timber, wine, grain, cloth, spices. Workers unloaded everything quickly because tides didn't wait, and time meant money. Nobody inspected anything closely. You grabbed, lifted, carried, stacked, and moved on. Below deck, the air stayed warm and stale, the kind of air that never really changed. Perfect for animals hiding in the dark. When lanterns swung through the holds, you could see them scatter, small bodies slipping between sacks, vanishing into cracks. Dock workers didn't chase them. There were always rats on ships, always had been. No one thought twice. The rats, though, weren't the real problem. The fleas were. Tiny, silent, almost weightless, living deep in the rat's fur and feeding on blood every day. And inside some of those fleas, a bacterium was multiplying, clogging their stomachs until they couldn't feed properly, so they bit again and again and again. When rats died during the voyage, which happened more often than anyone realized, the fleas didn't die with them. They simply searched for the next warm body nearby, another rat, a dog, or a person. When cargo came off the ships, the rats came with it, and the fleas came too. No one ever saw them jump. The first sick person didn't look special at all, just a dock worker in his 30s, strong, used to lifting sacks all day. By afternoon, he felt tired in a way that didn't make sense, not sore or injured, just drained, like the strength had quietly leaked out of his arms. He sat down longer than usual, drank some water, blamed the heat. By evening, he couldn't stop shivering. His skin burned, but his teeth knocked together. His head pounded, and when he tried to stand, his legs didn't feel steady. Under his groin, a hard swelling pushed painfully against the skin, deep, hot, tender. So he went home early, lay down, and told his wife he'd be fine tomorrow. By midnight, he couldn't stand at all, and in the walls behind the bed, the rats kept moving like nothing had changed. The room felt too warm when he got home, the kind of trapped warmth that never leaves. It was one small space for everything: the bed against the wall, grain sacks near the door, a cooking pot still hanging over last night's fire. His wife helped him lie down and pressed her hand to his forehead, then his chest, then his neck. too hot. He kept insisting he was fine. He wasn't. He kicked the blanket off, then pulled it back. Sweat soaked through the straw mattress. Changing clothes felt like too much effort, so he didn't. When he rolled onto his side, something small moved through the folds of the blanket and disappeared into the seam near his waist. The house stayed closed through the night, warm and still, perfect for anything that preferred heat and darkness. Sometime before dawn, a rat died under the floorboards. Nobody heard it, but the fleas did. With no blood left to take, they moved, out of the fur, through the cracks in the wood, onto whatever warm body was closest, up the bed legs, across the blanket, into the clothes. Each bite lasted less than a second, too small to wake anyone. By sunrise, he had new bites along his legs and waist and didn't know it. The fleas fed, tried to swallow, failed because their stomachs were blocked with bacteria, then bit again and again and again. When his wife tried to help him sit up, his head fell forward like he'd fallen asleep mid-motion. Swallowing hurt deep in his throat, and under his arm, another swelling had formed, hard and hot, the size of a small egg. So she called the neighbor, not because it seemed serious, just because she needed help lifting him. They leaned close together, hands under his shoulders, sleeves brushing his neck, faces inches from his breath. The same blanket passed back and forth between them, the room filled with shared air and body heat. Nobody thought twice. Helping always meant getting close. 3 neighbors had stepped inside, one with broth, one with herbs, one with nothing but concern. They all did the same small things, touched his forehead, adjusted the blanket, held the cup to his mouth, leaned on the bed frame, sat where his wife had been sitting all night. A flea only needs a second. One crawled from the blanket onto a sleeve and disappeared into the seam near an elbow. Another dropped quietly in the straw near someone's feet and waited. When the neighbors left, they carried it with them, back across the alley, back into their own beds. Outside, someone was already sweeping their step like they always did, pushing yesterday's straw into the gutter while the street slowly woke up around them. Nothing looked unusual yet. The city moved the same way it did every morning, unaware that anything had changed. By midday, though, it wasn't just one house anymore. A butcher closed early because he couldn't stop shivering. A child at the well fainted halfway through lifting a bucket. At the bakery, a woman leaned on the table longer than usual, saying her legs felt weak and heavy. These weren't people who knew each other, different streets, different routines, and still the same pattern kept showing up. First the heat, then the exhaustion, then the swellings, always near the neck, the groin, under the arms, wherever cloth pressed tight and fleas had easy access to skin. But nobody connected it. They just called it a bad fever. People got fevers all the time. London had seen sickness before. This didn't look special. Not yet. Inside the neighbor's house, the air thickened quickly. The windows stayed shut to keep warmth in. The fire burned low, and 3 people shared the same small room. The sick woman lay sweating through the blanket while her daughter wiped her face with the same rag again and again, and her husband paced near the door, unsure what else to do. Every few minutes, someone leaned close to listen to her breathing. Sleeves brushed her skin, knees pressed against the mattress. They shared the same cup for water, the same bowl, the same cloth, passing everything back and forth without thinking. Under the bed, something small moved quietly through the straw, stopping whenever footsteps stopped. By nightfall, the daughter felt warm too. The next morning, 3 chimneys on the same street didn't smoke. Usually breakfast fires started before sunrise, filling the air with the same familiar smell. Today, there was nothing. No sweeping, no shouting, no metal pans clanging, just a strange stillness that people noticed because London was almost never quiet. A man knocked on one door and waited. No answer. He knocked again, harder this time, then pushed it open slowly. The air inside felt wrong, stale and heavy, like it hadn't moved in hours. Two shapes lay under one blanket, and neither shifted when the light hit their faces. He stepped back outside without saying anything. There were still 2 more doors to check. After that, the cart didn't come once a week. It came every day. Same wheels, same horse, same 2 men walking beside it. They stopped asking questions. They just knocked softly and waited while blankets were handed out. Bodies were lifted and laid in the back, at first carefully, leaving space between each one. But by the 4th house, there wasn't room for that anymore. So they packed them closer, shoulder to shoulder, stacking tighter to make space. By the end of the street, the cart bed was full, and still it wasn't enough. They marked 2 doors with chalk and moved on, planning to come back tomorrow. Because tomorrow, there would be more. There were always more. Outside the city walls, the ground stayed open. At first, they dug proper graves, 1 hole, 1 body, fill it back in. But that stopped making sense by the 2nd week. The carts arrived faster than the shovels could work, so the gravediggers stopped separating them and dug 1 long trench instead, 10 feet wide and as long as the field would allow. The cart tipped, and the wrapped shapes slid down together, landing against each other with soft, heavy sounds. No one untied the blankets anymore. No one checked faces. There wasn't time for names. Dirt fell quickly, covering everything, leveling it out. Then the trench opened again before the soil had even settled. By afternoon, the same ground had already been used twice. Before sunset, it would be used again. London didn't stop working because people chose to stop. It stopped because there simply weren't enough people left. The blacksmith's forge went cold. The man who ran it hadn't opened his door in days. The bakery made half as much bread because only 1 woman showed up instead of 4. At the docks, cargo stacked higher than usual, while ships waited longer to unload because there weren't enough workers to carry the sacks. Tools stayed exactly where someone had last set them down: a half-cut piece of wood, an unfinished shoe, a pot still hanging over cold ashes, like the city had paused mid-motion and never resumed. Even the rats moved differently now, crossing open streets in daylight because there weren't enough footsteps left to scare them. Some families tried to leave. They packed quietly before sunrise so neighbors wouldn't ask questions: a loaf of bread, a blanket, a few coins tied into cloth, then slipped through the gates and followed the road north or west, hoping distance alone would solve the problem. But they wore the same clothes they'd slept in and carried the same bedding, the same seams where fleas hid deep and still. By the time they reached the next village, they just looked like tired travelers. Nothing unusual, nothing dangerous. They asked for water, rested in someone else's barn, shared food, slept near another fire, and the same tiny passengers stepped off with them and found new bodies by morning. The road didn't stop the sickness, it carried it. By winter, whole streets felt wider, not because buildings had moved, but because people were gone. Doors stayed shut for months, windows never opened, grass pushed through cracks where feet used to pass every hour. Wells had no lines, markets sounded thin and scattered. You could walk from one end of a lane to the other without brushing against anyone. Later, people would count it. Somewhere between 40 and 50 out of every 100 Londoners gone within a year, not in a dramatic moment, but through thousands of small, ordinary contacts, repeating day after day until half the city simply wasn't there anymore. Nothing supernatural, nothing mysterious. Ships, rats, fleas, Close rooms, shared air, helping hands. That was enough, and London wouldn't feel full again for a generation.